So now our next session is a lightning round. We have a bunch of speakers representing organizations that offer some of the best and most promising programs for military and veteran caregivers. We've given our speakers 5 minutes each, which will be no easy task because they have a lot to say and they're doing a lot of great work. But we are going to stick strictly by those time limits. We have a timekeeper and we'll have a time posted up here, right here in front of the stage. And we've also worked with the Hilton Hotels Group, and they are a wonderful sponsor as well. I'll talk about them later. But they've installed some trap doors here, and those trap doors just go, release the individuals, and once that happens, we're not sure where they go. We did that at Brain Trust a few months ago, and we lost a few folks. I'm not sure where they are. Completely disappeared. So stick to the 5 minutes is what I guess we're trying to say here. I'll introduce the moderator. She's the executive director of the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving, and that's at the Georgia Southwestern State University. She's going to talk to you about evidence-based program that strengthens military families. And then she'll introduce herself, and then each person will introduce the next speaker. So please welcome Lisa Isom.
Thank you, Senator Dole, and thank you, Steve, for allowing me to be here for this opportunity. It's truly wonderful. We've just heard from the VA, Meg Cabot and her wonderful panel about the resources that we have available through the government. It's very important that we know about all these resources so that we can work together collaboratively to do great things. The goal of this round is to continue to fill in this picture of the caregiving landscape of supports and resources that are available for the military caregiver. Each speaker is to address the gap that they're working in. They are to talk about the successes that they have achieved, and they are also to talk about, I guess most importantly, how you can use this. Get the technology going. Okay. I get to be the first speaker. And to begin my presentation, I'd like to share with you a story that's representative of the caregiving stories that we hear. It may be similar to what you've already heard today some, which it should be. I am 28 years old. I am lonely. I am frustrated. I am overwhelmed. My husband, Jason, has returned from his 3rd deployment. He suffers with post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, knee and back and shoulder injuries. He has migraine headaches, acid reflux. He is sleepless and he is depressed. Over the last year, where he has been honorably discharged from the Army, he's been unable to find a job. I think that makes him even more withdrawn. Sometimes I feel like I'm living with a roommate than being part of a marriage. I sent a whole, healthy, strapping young man to war, and they returned to me a shell of a man. I now care for him with my 3 children. They're ages 3 to 6, and the youngest of which has autism, which takes most of my extra time and my care. I need an extra set of hands in the household to be a disciplinarian, to help me make decisions, to give kisses and hugs, to be a role model for my children. My family and my friends don't always understand, and their advice is not always helpful. They don't understand Jason's behavior at times. I've had limited success, but I have been able to gain some of his health care benefits. I've never really needed to reach out for help before, but I'm a military caregiver, and I need help now. As Senator Dole said earlier today, we must face today's challenges, but we've got to prepare and get ready for tomorrow and what's to come. And part of that getting ready for what's to come and what we're facing today is to be a solution. And Operation Family Caregiver is part of the solution. You know, as Secretary McDonald stated, he gave an analogy about how you build a clock. Well, I think that OFC is part of that clock, because together we can work together to build huge solutions. So how does it work? Operation Family Caregiver, the caregiver reaches out to a coach. The caregiver connects with that coach, and they develop a plan, a tailored plan that is tailored to that family. And when I say family, I mean spouses, parents, battle buddies, friends. They're all eligible as families for this program. And the caregiver learns a new set of skills, problem-solving skills. This is a free and confidential evidence-based program coming out of a clinical trial, so we know it's science that works. And through this and working together with the caregiver over 4 to 6 months, the caregiver gets to practice those skills because we know that behavior change takes time, and they get to work on this. We're supposed to speak about our successes. Let me share with you, with our families, we are seeing decreased depression. We are seeing decreased health complaints. We are seeing increased satisfaction with life, along with other positive aspects for caregiving. So it's proven effective, and one thing, we have been in the caregiving space for 30 years, 3 decades. And what I can say to you is that we have learned that sometimes you take the caregiving intervention to the caregiver. So this particular intervention is delivered by Skype, by FaceTime, or it can be in person. And the last thing we're supposed to speak to you today is about how that you can connect with us or how this can help you. One, you can join. Anyone can join for free. www.operationfamilycaregiver.org. You can also become a referral partner. If you're already serving these families in your organization, refer them to us. It's free and confidential. And last, if you decide, no, I'd like to have the program and offer it in my own menu of services, then you can do that as well. And we have brochures in the back. So I'll leave that with you. I know my time is up. But I'd like to introduce the next speaker. We have Mike Lennington, who is the Chief Executive Officer for the Wounded Warrior Project. He will be speaking to you about creating meaningful impact in the lives of caregivers through direct programs and services. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Isom. Senator Dole, thank you for the great opportunity to be here today and speak on behalf of Wounded Warrior Project and our partnered efforts with many of the folks in this room about how we can better care for our Wounded Warriors, our post-9/11 Wounded Warriors, and their families and their caregivers. And, you know, I have to tell you up front, I was very impressed with Secretary McDonald being here as long as he was. I will tell you, as the new CEO of Wounded Warrior Project, today's my 70th day on the job, so attending events like this are incredibly important for me to get my feet on the ground, learn what programs and services Wounded Warrior Project provides that make a difference, and learn ways that we can better partner with folks in the room and that are not in the room with us today in how we can better care for our veterans, post-9/11 veterans, wounded veterans, and their families and caregivers. Bob McDonald's arguably the busiest man on the planet, and he gave me an hour of his time on Monday when I came to town to talk about what Wounded Warrior Project does and how we can augment those incredible services that we heard about this morning that are provided by the Veterans Administration. And not only did he give me an hour of his time, but he did give me 5 follow-up emails in response to my back and forth with him, including one last night at 9:47 p.m. So I will tell you, this is a secretary that gets it, truly cares about our veterans. And for Secretary McDonald, who's not here, I appreciate his partnership as well as that as the VA. And I welcome and appreciate Wounded Warrior Project partners and teammates that are here with us today, Jennifer McInday, Melissa Cormet, and many others that have spoken about us. Today's an important day to talk about how Wounded Warrior Project can make a difference for the lives of caregivers. Caregivers have been an important focus of Wounded Warrior Project since our inception, and we've worked diligently to provide our caregivers with support, created program events designed specifically for them, and advocated on their behalf, most notably through the landmark Caregivers and Veterans Omnibus Health Services Act of 2010, which was an important legislative accomplishment, I'm sure supported by all of you in this room. We would not have been able to achieve our mission, and we certainly would never be able to achieve our mission to honor and empower our wounded warriors without addressing the needs of our caregivers and their families. Caregivers' experience, and being a 35-year veteran, I will tell you, caregivers experience war in a completely different way, but as you've heard this morning and as you heard Dr. Isom talk about, certainly no less traumatic or life-changing. And caregivers are, in my opinion, truly hidden heroes that deserve our immense talent, our immense respect, and every effort we can possibly generate on their behalf, and I am inspired by them. At Wounded Warrior Project, we help caregivers in a variety of ways. First and most importantly is to integrate them in their warriors' recovery. Project Odyssey is a multi-day retreat that we host for wounded warriors suffering from combat wounds, post-traumatic stress, and warrior teammates, couples, caregivers are important in those retreats. And it was great for me to speak to many of you today that took advantage of our Project Odyssey. Last year, 400 couples took part in Project Odyssey with an amazing 96% satisfaction rate. While we know working alongside warriors is critical, we also know that caregivers require individualized support as well, and we're doing all we can to support caregivers in that regard as well. Sometimes it's as simple as giving a caregiver a break from daily environment, just getting out to refocus their energy, spending time with other caregivers in their communities, or taking advantage of small respites while we provide in-home care for those that aren't provided the care by Veterans Affairs. The last area that Wounded Warrior Project provides great support is through our Independence Program and our Long-Term Support Trust. They were created specifically in partnership with the VA to provide help in-home where it's appropriate. And this is a program for warriors who rely on a caregiver as a result of a moderate to severe brain injury, spinal cord injury, or other neurological conditions. And it's a big program for us, but it's an important investment we pledge to continue in the future. This program allows select warriors to live life to the fullest on his or her own terms and adapts to the ever-changing needs of the warrior and his or her family. And as Senator Dole said this morning, we know those needs are adopting, and we need to adopt our programs as well to meet those emerging needs. Coupled closely to our Independence Program is our Long-Term Support Trust Program, which is available to supplement the needs of our severely wounded warriors due to the loss of a caregiver. And should that tragic event happen, we're there for the warriors that are in our Independence Program through our Long-Term Support Trust. It's more than peace of mind, it's security and support for their loved ones who have sacrificed so much on behalf of their country. Thank you for allowing Wounded Warrior Project to participate today and work together in providing lasting solutions for our military caregivers. Caring for our nation's post 9/11 wounded warriors is a sacred responsibility that I take personally, and that includes the brave, compassionate, and resilient caregivers and family members who care for our wounded warriors. Next up, you'll hear from Kathy Roth-Duquet from Blue Star Families. Kathy will be talking to you about how integral community support is to the health of caregivers and their families. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, General Innington. Thank you, Steve Schwab and Senator Dole, for allowing us to be here today. This is a room of people that means so much to us at Blue Star Families. We met Becky shortly after she moved to San Diego, to Camp Pendleton. Her husband had recently returned from Iraq with a host of problems, including PTSD and TBI and many physical issues as well. He was still in the military, but his body was deteriorating. He was walking with a cane, and he was facing medical discharge. This was blowing up their world and their expectations for what their future would be. Becky herself was experiencing some mental health challenges to the extent that she felt overwhelmed, and she had a hard time even understanding what the stages of her problems were or how she might address them. She was confused. And she spoke to someone on the installation, a peer coordinator, who referred her to Ashley at Blue Star Families Caregivers Empowering Caregivers program. In that first call, I actually spent 2 hours on the phone with Becky, talking about her feelings and her fears and her concerns, and telling her about the program, the social program that Caregivers Empowering Caregivers has, where we bring spouses, caregivers of all flavors together in a no friction way, in a lovely setting with no cost, to have fun, to meet others with childcare, to help her start to create a community so that she could feel the internal strength to have the tools to go forward. Becky was shocked to hear that there was something that was for her, and that it was free, and that it had childcare. That's not what she usually experienced. And so she did finally agree to come to the first gathering. Blue Star Families, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, is a group of military families that works with our neighbors and leaders to overcome the challenges of military lives in the communities where we live. Those challenges are primarily in isolation and building strength in our communities, and also in careers and financial security. Strengthening our community includes the caregivers. When we talk to our community, the military family community, that includes the caregivers, and what they told us is that what they were missing more than anything else was a way to connect to people who they felt they could understand. At that first meeting, Becky said she was excited, but she was initially very closed in and scared. But as she heard people talk to each other, laugh, it was around a pottery. People were making ceramics and painting things. She started to relax, and she started to laugh, and soon they were talking about resources that were successful for them, their challenges with weight gain, what a good meal tip might be. And she started to feel that in this new community where she had nobody, she was starting to have her village. And now she's a regular with us. So this is the heart of what we do with our programs, is we believe relationships are necessary to solve things. They're the water in the swimming pool that makes that, distant, high spot seem impossible to get to until you fill it up, and then you can just swim over. Caregiving Empowering Caregivers, which has been supported by USAA, and we appreciate them so much for that. In addition to the social program, does half-day workshops that gives people more intentional tools and strategies to solve their own problems. We're all about teaching people to fish and not giving people fish. We're so honored to partner with the Rosalind Carter Institute and expand their program using Blue Star volunteers, 5 volunteers in San Diego and San Antonio, who help not only people in their community, but all over the country and of all eras. We don't restrict who finds their way to our family and who we embrace. We're so honored to work with the Military Veteran Caregiver Network. Our caregivers are all on that platform, accessing 3,000 resources. And we are very excited about our increased efforts to make our work accessible to everyone wherever they are using technology and virtual tools. We're working to develop an avatar-based training tool for families that will be like a game. So you can practice all the interactions you need to do with an avatar before you do them in real life, just like our pilots do practice on a simulator. We're creating our own simulator for military spouses, and we're excited about that. We couldn't do what we do without the partnership of people in this room. The leadership of the Dole Foundation and Hidden Heroes helps tie us all together and make us so much more powerful. We're so excited and so grateful. Kobe Bryant is known to say that his team can't be successful unless each of his team members knows that he's rooting for them and they're rooting for each other. That's how we feel at Blue Star Families. We're rooting for our caregivers. They're rooting for each other. We know all of this all of us here in this room together are doing the same. We're delighted that you're part of our family, and we're excited for the future and what we can do together. Thank you. My friend Dr. Davis, who's the Executive Vice President of Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors and Executive Director of the Military Veteran Family Network.
Thank you very much, Kathy. I got to take mine off too. A long, long time ago, there was a young girl who was a new spouse of a Korean War veteran. And unbeknownst to her, he had severe PTS. It affected his behavior, his drinking, his anger, and she had nowhere to turn. She turned to places like parks and schools, and sometimes running down the street in the middle of the night to get away. That girl had no resources like we have today. She went on to become a VA clinician, and later she became a soldier. Eventually, in 2007, she found herself at the DoD and the VA, leading the first reform of caregiver care and wounded warrior care to implement the wonderful recommendations of Senator Bob Dole. Today, thanks to the generous support of Senator Elizabeth Dole, that former caregiver is able to address many of the gaps that were found in the America's Hidden Heroes report, the gaps that so many of these same caregivers face, and that is being afraid of the future, not knowing what it will hold, and not having anyone to turn to. With the tremendous encouragement of Rory from the White House, Senator Dole, we were able to create the Military and Veteran Caregiver Network. It was created based on the best practices of the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. You know, this is a journey, this is a continuum, and unfortunately, we're dealing with a very difficult part right now, but eventually, the ones we love and care about will come to the end. The Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors for over 20 years has supported the loved ones of those who are coming to an end with peer-based emotional support. And the gap we identified in the RAND report of isolation, and thank you, Terry and team, that gap is filled in large part by peer-based emotional support. We've taken the TAP's evidence-based best practices in peer support, and we've applied it to 3 programs that the caregivers told us we want a safe and secure, non-Facebook location to come and to talk to one another and to find one another. So we created 3 programs that we want to share, as Senator Dole encouraged all of us to work together. We're sharing. We've had the benefit of having our online peer support community up for over a year. It's run of, by, and for caregivers, and they happen to be all Dole Fellows. Raise your hand, team. Some of them are in the room. They're awesome. They're awesome. They walk the walk. And the impact that we've been able to have in just a year is tremendous. We have many things to offer, and we'd like to offer them to you today. The platform that we were able to create with the generous support of Bristol Myers Squibb Foundation, the Wounded Warrior Project, and the Bob Woodworth Foundation, in addition to the anchor sponsorship of Senator Dole, has enabled us to do all these different things to connect caregivers, because you need options. You need options and ways to connect to one another. A couple I'd like to highlight and invite you in today, if you're a caregiver, is please consider joining one of the online communities where you can have chats, discussions, webinars. Well, you will get a feed at the end of the week of what's happened in the discussion groups that are moderated by your peers that are safe and secure. So if you don't have time that week, you don't miss out. We also have those groups now, we also invite our partners. You can use this platform to host a closed, secure discussion group for your caregivers. In fact, we've just added groups in Australia and also in the United Kingdom. Come to the platform for the caregiver calendar and put your activities in for caregivers only. And the last thing I'd like to mention is that today, this week, we have launched our peer mentor program. It's training using vetted best practices. It's available. You can become a caregiver. You can learn new competencies. You can receive a caregiver. And all of this would not be possible if people like Senator Dole were not able to be available to us and to that little caregiver who a long time ago saw no hope for the future. I'd like to now introduce my good friend. Up next, Jed Johnson. He's the Senior Vice President of Strategic Initiatives with Easter Seals National Office. Jed will be highlighting the points related to our work in the education and training and respite care areas. Thank you very much, Jed.
She did say she was going to introduce me as the most dapper dressed person here. Good morning, I'm Jed Johnson. I have the privilege of working with my esteemed colleagues, and what I wanted to share with you today is just a little bit about what are some of the takeaways that we've learned in our history of supporting military caregivers through the respite arena as well as through education and training efforts. Let me see. Other way. Perfect. Well, first of all, I wanted to give a shout out to a number of organizations who we partner with who are not going to be up on the stage today, and really make the point that we're all in this together. It really is a collaborative arena. Our collaborative partners in the webinar series that we launched include the National Alliance for Caregiving, Atlas Research, Caregiver Action Network, the Family Caregiver Alliance, the Rosalind Carter Institute, as well as USO, and we really couldn't have done it without them. And for those of you that are embarking upon providing services and supports to military caregivers, I would really encourage you to do that in a collaborative way with many of the folks in the room today. One of the primary premises of Easter Seals, being a premier provider of services for people with disabilities, is really accessibility. So one of the helpful hints that we've learned in providing our services and supports is to ensure that they're accessible both for veterans as well as caregivers themselves. So things like the ramp on the stage today, but for our webinar series, for example, we do live captioning to ensure if a caregiver has a visual impairment that they're able to a hearing impairment that they're able to watch along with us. We also do transcripts for those as well, and really try to accommodate special needs. We also try to reach out to diverse communities, and I've been told there are a number of the Dole Fellows that are Spanish speakers. Do we have any habla español in that? I think there's a few people here. Hopefully they've been able to participate. One of the most meaningful aspects of our webinar series has been the webinars that we've offered in Spanish language. Interestingly, for the last webinar that we provided, the webinar ended, the content ended, and literally I couldn't turn off the webinar platform because there was a continual scrolling of chats going on for literally 20 minutes following the end of that project. With caregivers reaching out. And I really would encourage us when we're thinking about moving forward in the future, that Spanish language caregiving community is an area that is certainly underserved and needs more services and support. Thank you. The other thing that we've really learned is to try to move away from some of the statistics and really give actionable advice. We record them so they're available 24/7. We've got a couple of new webinars coming out One will be on October 20th. The next one will be November 17th. And November 17th, we're actually going to be featuring a toolkit that we're developing, looking at smoking cessation for military caregivers, an issue, a healthcare issue of exceeding importance. So I'd encourage you to visit our website as well. Let me just briefly talk a little bit about some of our respite as provided. I have the privilege of co-chairing the Impact Council on Respite. We are doggedly dedicated to really making an impact in the respite care arena for military veteran caregivers. My co-chair is Jill Kagan from Arch National Respite. If anybody has a commitment or a passion about respite, I would encourage you to get in contact with Jill and myself, because we'd be delighted to have you as part of our team to really move the dime forward in that respite care arena. I do have one very actionable step that I want all of you to take later on today is reach out to your congresswomen and congressmen and encourage them to reauthorize lifespan respite. It's currently on the table. It's got bipartisan and bicameral support. Your actions are really needed at this important point of time. It'll benefit military and veteran caregivers across the lifespan. Now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Thomas Downs. He's the Diversity Talent Acquisition Leader from Capital One. He'll be addressing the importance of changing both the company culture as well as company policies for caregivers in the workplace. Thank you.
Good morning. Well, my wife's watching right now, so with her explicit instructions, I cannot take my shoes off because we will clear this entire room. But I do have a Capital One credit card in my wallet, so I'm good. So everything's happening. So with that in mind, thank you for your time this morning. And I wanted to start my portion of today's speech, or my 5 minutes of fame, if you will, with a personal note. Both my mother and father, in-law, have been caregivers for 46 years. Although my brother-in-law, Michael, is not a veteran, he has been disabled since birth and requires around-the-clock care. So when my wife and I married, I understood then, as I know now, that when my in-laws are no longer able to take care of Michael, that she and I will resume those responsibilities 100%. At Capital One, we're there, okay, oops. At Capital One, we encourage our associates to bring their whole selves to work. Everyone has a unique background, perspective, and experience that adds to our story and enables us to achieve our mission together. Via an enterprise-wide survey, we also encourage our associates to self-identify, to include caregivers. With that, we encourage them to also join the employee resource group, the Capabilities Network, which you see on the slide on my left and right. The Capabilities Network. This is an employee resource group both for associates who have disabilities and also for caregivers with individuals who are supporting those with disabilities. A true sense of inclusion. Notice that we capitalize the A in abilities. I can assure you that's not a typo. Abilities. A true sense of inclusion once again. I'm sure one or more of the words listed in the word cloud as well will likely resonate with some of you in the room. This was the most common word submitted by our employee resource group of what defines them. Another example of how impactful employee resource groups can be influential with your company. This particular group was instrumental with influencing how our enterprise-wide medical benefits improve the coverage for those with autism in our company, as well as their dependents and children. Some additional ways to help change a company culture and/or policy to further support caregivers. As I previously mentioned, encourage self-identification for caregivers and establish an employee resource group that includes them. Often when you start a new job, you're typically asked to voluntarily self-identify. Those traditional categories are gender, race or ethnicity, disability status, and veteran status. Information that the Office of Federal Contract Compliance and Programs, or better known as OFCCP, asks for from employers that are government contractors. How about we challenge that norm today? How impactful would it be if caregivers of veterans were also included as a hiring benchmark for all to achieve? As Secretary McDonald said today, with today's technology, everyone is accessible all the time. And I think we can all probably agree that can be both good and bad. So implementing flex time or telework at your employers, along with open dialogue with caregivers to better understand the challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis, will not only impact the company, it'll help every employee to especially include those caregivers. Flex scheduling or flex time, be it with days at the office that you're required to be there or not be there, and or core hours that you're supposed to be online working. That's what we do at Capital One. Traditionally results in our increased work productivity and employee retention rates. Telework or work from home roles is strategic for every company to strive for. It can have substantial cost savings, and just think what a company can save annually for having an X number percentage of employees work from home, what they would save in real estate taxes and real estate rent alone. This is a win-win for both the company and the associates. So please, I challenge you all to go forward, continue to challenge the working norms, and encourage our companies to embrace the changes that I've outlined here for you today. Thank you. Up next, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Nick Padula. Nick is the Vice President of Sales from Phillips Home Monitoring. He will be speaking to you about brining technology and innovations to caregivers and the importance of continued innovation for aging in place. Thank you.
Thomas, I'm going to deviate from my notes here for a moment. You know, there's an old saying is, tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. And thank you for sharing that personal healthcare story. And I have to tell you, if any of you were not moved over the last 2 days, you probably shouldn't be in this business. So thank you for sharing your personal healthcare story, and we're most proud to be a partner such as Capital One. Thank you, Thomas. So, Nick Padula from Phillips. You probably best know us for light bulbs. I talk to people, I say we are the second largest source of light next to the sun, but literally we sell a lot of light bulbs, but we're so much more than that. And I want to introduce you to what we do. We make MRIs, CAT scanners, patient monitoring. In fact, we do a lot of work with the DoD and put engineers in my previous role brought 2 MRIs to near battlefield conditions. So we have served the United States, our veterans, our soldiers in different ways. My specific role is with Phillips Lifeline. This is about bringing care into the home. We've been into this business about 43 years. Long before the smartphones, we were connecting to seniors and the caregivers in the home, providing a link there. And while we have many insights that we've accumulated and have acquired over the years, I will tell you the insights and the nuances here of what you can provide are instrumental on how we create moving forward. So at the breaks in the future, I'll leave cards behind. Please share your personal healthcare stories, because they may manifest itself into something that you'll see out there for others to use. Next slide. I get paid to be a little disruptive. I mean, that's actually a job. I can go to healthcare organization, and I've been in almost every one, and I'm telling them why they're broken, why there's a pathology of care that exists today in the United States healthcare system. I mean, we're operating on a 100-plus-year-old model. It needs some disruption, and I think many of you can identify with this little graphic that's behind me, and it starts, and it's not to scale, it starts with getting sick and going to the hospital. And many are discharged home with an episode of care in terms of home health care, and technology is brought home with telehealth and other assets. But after that point, where you've been exposed to hundreds of millions of dollars of technology and people and services, you're left with about nothing other than some of the most powerful technology being a cable box for your television. And that's wrong. And what we are going to do and what we have started and what I'm going to introduce in a moment is about providing line of sight and tethering into the home in, again, a most unprecedented way. We must stop this. I liken it to Groundhog Day, that the only time many of us will see care again, or for those that we provide care to, is when they readmit through an emergency room. But after the last 2 days, I'm changing the slide. Because where you'll see in a portion of the lower part of it where it says the no care zone, well, it's a no clinical care zone. It's a limited clinical care zone, but it's very much a caregiver zone where you're filling a gap and we are most obligated to think differently and provide new solutions. So imagine, we've come to believe and we've come to accept that we can predict the weather, we can predict sports scores. But why up until now did we think about being able to predict healthcare? And it exists. So imagine being able to look 30 days out to understand if your loved one or yourself is going to experience an exacerbation, a deterioration from a chronic disease. We have that ability where we use wearables that will be able to integrate into a powerful algorithm to be able to get you really the care management, the longitudinal care management that arguably has eluded folks, to give you the ability in a most controlled manner and not rushing to the ER at 2 a.m, but to get a doctor visit, to get maybe a controlled ER visit sometime during the day, leverage caregivers' ecosystems, or get a resumption of care. Again, it exists today, and it's going to drive change. Unfortunately, Secretary McDonald is not here. I'm most proud to share with you that Vision 4 has accepted our offer to do a demonstration project in Pennsylvania. So more to come on that. We hope to scale it and bring it to scale quickly. Thank you. And in closing, I'll close with another saying that goes to the effect, many hands make for a lighter load. It just does. And we know that there's so much on your shoulders, but we also realize that there is an ecosystem out there and we want to help you leverage it. So this is a tool. I'm way out of time, so I can't go into the features, but if you're interested, see me at the break, that leverages everybody out there within your sphere of influence to include other family members that will allow you to collaborate in different ways on a system for to-dos, tasks, schedules. And we are offering that to caregivers, to the VA, to this team, to the foundation at no cost. And we'll show you how to get that within the next month or so you can be one of the first to grab this. And in closing, I've heard the word family quite a bit discussed over the last 2 days. One of the things at Phillips we will offer and would love to provide the foundation is our friends and family discount. You have our employee discount to help you with wearables and technology that will help you care for the ones that you love and that have served and help you to continue to serve into the future. Thank you for the time.
All right. Well, we didn't have to use the trap door. Almost, Nick, though. But we're right on time. Let's give these panelists a big round of applause. Wonderful programs they highlighted.